Okay, this is a video which is about the Mandela effect, although you might not see it as that right at first. What I'm showing you here in these beautiful, colorful pictures are pictures I take of light. I take a picture of light by filming the shiny part of a reflection of light onto a glass object. And I get these beautiful orb-like movements of light. It's almost like this were another dimension. And this is all around us. Most of these pictures were taken right in my room. So I'm going to have them going, so it gives you something to look at while I read something for you, which has to do with the reality of our human existence. And I'm surprised people are not aware of, well, a lot of people aren't aware of Walter Russell. But if they would read his book, which they can do, I read it all on my channel. I'll read the entire Divine Illiad I and several other of his books. But I want to read to you this part of Divine Illiad I to give you an idea of how, if you understand who God really is, you can understand how the Mandela effect could be. And I won't try to explain it with my words, just listen to the words that I will be reading and consider them. The message of the Divine Iliad is sent from our Father to give unfolding humanity the needed comprehension for taking the next transforming step in man's long journey from the jungle of sensed awareness of body to cosmic conscious awareness of omnipresent light of God as the centering, motivating force of man. For millions of years, man was unaware of his conscious self. He was but body, expressing the desires of body, constantly seeking that which his body needed, and taking it by his might of physical strength. During those eons of his unfolding, man was totally unaware of his unity with God and mankind. Likewise, he was totally unaware of the universal, inexorable law which governed his every action. Then came the dawn of consciousness. Man began to know. Then he created extensions of his body to do for him what his body could not do. He created a boat to transport his body, then a sail for the boat, then a wheel, and fire to warm him and cook the food which he formerly ate raw during the animal stage of his unfolding. Then came the long, savage, and barbarian stages of increasingly complex human relations based upon the jungle principle of taking that which he wanted by the power of might over right. During thousands of years, tribes warred upon other tribes, building themselves into nations and then empires to gain possession of the wealth and the services of other tribes and nations by acquiring their lands and people for ownership and exploitation. Our own United States were thus acquired. We killed without compunction to obtain what we wanted. We stole hundreds of thousands of Negroes and made slaves of them. England, France, the Netherlands, Russia, and other nations multiplied their empires by the sword of the mighty, slaying the weak. Industrial empires came into being, as our supposedly higher civilized and enlightened society of humans increased its knowledge and practice of the arts and sciences. Advancement in our cultures and standard of living continued to deceive us as to our status as civilized beings. We failed to realize that we were illegitimately still practicing the law of the jungle, which takes only what it needs for survival, while man took thousands of times more than he needed for material gain. The jungle kills one at a time for food, but man kills by millions for enslavement and exploitation. Such practices are a normal part of our present standard of civilization. It is difficult to realize that we are still barbarians. A civilization which kills and exploits others for mere gain can hardly call itself civilized. Humans can never justly call themselves civilized until they practice the love principle which God practices in all of His creation. Mankind has reached that stage of his unfolding where he must either learn the facts of inexorable universal law and practice them, or perish by his own hand. He will die by the sword he slays with unless his entire human relations are reversed from the taking principle to the nature's principle of balanced giving for re-giving. Man's scientific skills have made it possible for him to slay his entire race, a continuation of the old barbaric practice of taking, which has bred his many wars of hatred and aggression, will inevitably lead to a war of extinction unless nature's love principle of giving replaces it. Today the world is divided. Disunity marks all human relations, from industry to religion, from capital to labor. Two opposing world ideologies, democracy and communism, stand like insurmountable precipices to debar war unity. Freedom itself is not 2 centuries old. Slavery was existent in our own country within the memory of living men. Through ignorance and superstition, America's colonial empires are still attempting to build themselves into greater empires by the sword. Man is at the crossroads of his unfolding. The old way of life which built his empires of hate and fear must be abandoned. This coming age must be built upon God's one law of balanced interchange in all human relations. There is no other alternative. To continue the old way means the destruction of civilization by multiplied hate. To follow the new path will mean the multiplication of love, which alone will bring peace, happiness, and prosperity to man. Man's comprehension has been limited to the range of his senses. Man is now unfolding beyond the range of material sensing in the direction of cosmic knowing. Science is doing this for him. Science is slowly but surely verifying the personal God of man's demanding and identifying the invisible spiritual personal being of man with the invisible spiritual personal being of God. Science is thus replacing man's abstract God of faith and belief with a dynamic God of law and order whom man knows. The abstract God of faith and belief is the direct cause of man's many religions, for abstractions have bred many concepts of God, where knowledge can conceive but the one. Faith and belief are the shield of ignorance. The message of the Divine Iliad is to build a scientific comprehension of the nature of God and man's unity with God, in order that mankind may unfold in the direction of its ultimate goal of cosmic awareness of the light, rather than refold by descending into the terrors of another deep and long dark age. Through love alone can man find the kingdom of heaven for which he has sought since his beginning. Only through living love as a principle can he find the happiness, peace, and prosperity which lie in his heart as the greatest of his desires. God is the light of all knowing. Creation is a thought wave universe which records God's knowings as expressed by God's electric thinking. The Divine Iliad cannot be fully published for many years. The first excerpts from it were published in The Secret of Light. As much more of it as can now be published will appear in this volume. Further portions of it will be released in accordance with instructions specifically given for their release in the Divine Iliad. Walter Russell. Now that was the preface to that. Now next is a communion, a book of desire. And this is like a prayer to God. I am in the kingdom of thy heavens, O my Father, Mother. Speak thou to me, lest my words to man be but my words, not thine and mine. Earth is far, I behold it not, know it not. I but sense it afar through flux threads which bind me to it lightly. I know thee only in me, thee, the light of myself, thee, the two lights of my far body, which lie enfolded in thy body, awaiting self of it, self of me, self of thee, at its reborning. Deep upon my heart are questionings which I must answer in words for which there are no words. Intent am I upon the pulse beat of thy thinking, O my Father. Extend thou the two interweaving lights of thy thinking to my consciousness, that my knowing shall rightly interpret thy thinking through the pulse beat of my thinking. Now the next is called the Word, and these are like the words that God answered Walter Russell. And I understand this God better than the Bible God. I don't understand the Old Testament Bible God because he was so full of hate and judgment, and seemed that he just hated mankind because he wanted to rid the world of man, and he had his chosen people kill so many other people who didn't believe in that God. And that is not something that a creator would do, in my opinion, because they wouldn't be subject to being jealous and being revengeful. So I understand this Father, Mother God that Walter Russell talks about, and you can understand him too if you want to. I will put the playlist for this entire book and some of the other books that I have as well that I have on my channel. I will put that in the discussion bar. But what I'm doing with this video is just to whet your appetite so that you might want to know. Because in the reading of Walter Russell books, I do see that we are like thoughts in the mind of God, and that God is like unto a big computer. But his thoughts are living things, and their records last, and their records can be brought into a dimension where there's neither time nor space, where they can be rearranged. And that might be what is happening right now, and it might be that God is doing, that Creator, Father, Mother God is doing all of this that we see happening in the Mandela effect as a way of getting us to realize that we are in a kind of reality that is like a virtual reality, and that our world, while it looks so real, is illusion. So many people have said that down through the ages, that we're living in an illusion. And if it is an illusion, it is created by some kind of program. And I don't think those that create programs that are high enough to do that kind of work for God, for Father, Mother God, are beings who don't like us. I think they love us, and they're trying to help us wake up. So anyway, listen to these few words in the next 12 minutes or so I have on this video. And these were God's words. Write thou these words for men. Through my messengers I have told man to cast his bread upon the waters, and it would return to him multiplied. But he comprehendeth it not even to this day. Through my messengers I have told man that it is not easy for him who loveth riches of earth alone to enter my kingdom. But he still fails to comprehend that he may have great riches and still find his way to me through obeying my one law. Write thou my law for him 100 times, yea, 100 times 100 times, and exemplify it unceasingly, that he may know it inviolate, that he may know it irrevocable, and that he may find ecstasy in obeying it. Write thou again my oft-said words, desire you what you will, and it shall be thine. All my universe will give it to thee in the strength of thy desires, and in the strength of thy action, in reaching out for thy desires. Heed ye thy desires, lest they be unlawful. Measure ye thy desires carefully against their opposites, lest unbalanced desires breed their unbalanced kind to arise and smite thee. For again I say, my one principle of my one law is founded upon the solid rock of equal interchange between all pairs of opposite things, opposite conditions, or opposite transactions between men. My will must prevail on earth as it is in heaven. That which I divide to give to earths and to their surrounding heavens of space is equal. That which earths gives to their surrounding space balances that which space gives to earths. See thou, my mighty... Wait a minute. Let me get this going again. See thou my will thus working irrevocably in the starry systems which constitute my immortal, eternal body. Note thou the precision of earth paths through their heavens. Know thou that such precision is result of obedience to my will, which my law is. Tell thou these words of my law in the firmament of my body to man who knows these workings, but denies me in them. Tell men my rhythms are absolute, else the interlacing of earth paths through their heavens could not be. Tell him also that chaos must arise from his unbalanced comings and goings, his givings and takings, even as chaos would arise from disobedience to my will in the comings and goings of earth paths through their heavens, or the givings and regivings of their interchanging pressures. When skies take on earth unequally with earth's taking of the skies, tornadoes tell both earth and skies that I am within and without them. Yea, within and without every particle of them, and theirs is the agony of disobedience to my will. Not till they obey my will do they find peace and rest in my tranquility. These do I balance with my will, as I balance all divided pairs of... I lost my place and try to get that thing going again, and it makes it stop. I'll start again. Likewise, when man takes aught from earth and gives naught to me... No, I was on this one. These do I balance with my will, as I balance all the divided pairs of my universe of me. Likewise, when man takes aught from earth and gives aught not to me for regiving through self of him, toxins arise within him, which are tornadoes for his self-quelling. Say thou to men, ye are my body. Hear thou me when I say that thy desires are thyself, yea, both body and spirit of thee. That which thou wouldest possess is thee, even though thou possess it not. In body it is thee. In pattern, seed, and soul it is thee. Thou canst not evade. Thou thyself, create thyself in thy image. If thou desirest gold of earth without balancing thy taking of it by giving gold of heaven in equal measure, thy very soul records the changing of thy unbalanced soul pattern to the measure of thy unbalancing. He who discords the patterns of my balanced will discords its very seed. Its rhythms he must make absolute, even as the disturbed rhythms of earth's storms must be made absolute. From this my decree, there is no escape for man, nor star, nor galaxy in my universe. What I imagined into seeming being to manifest me. And there you go, right there. What I imagined into seeming being. We are in the imagination of God. You know, I'm not reading right now, but I'm just talking because we can't. need to be able to see that we are God's imagination. I know in the Bible it says we are created in His image, but we know that that couldn't mean His physical image. And so it has to be spirit. And we are beings that live in many places. And when we are in a place where we're outside of time and motion and space, then we are part of the God mind. And a lot of books that I read talk about this, beings coming from the presence of the God mind, trying to explain to us the situation that we're in. And so we need to realize the nature of our reality is because when you are outside of time and space, which are only constructs, they're not real. They're part of the illusion. But the illusion is real enough to us who are in it because we're the illusion within an illusion. Everything about us is all thought. And like some scientists are trying to explain the Mandela effect, they're saying we are thought. We are informational cells. But we are informational cells in the body of a bigger one. And I think that is our Creator. And I don't worry about what this Mandela effect, because I see it as a wake-up call to many, many, many people. Because when you look at what's happening because of it, there are people in churches calling one another, oh, you're not going to heaven because you believe in this Mandela effect. So they're discovering that their own people are throwing them under the bus because of what it is that they believe they remember. And they believe so strongly they remember that the scriptures were a different way than they are now. And I'm one of them who believes, they used to say wineskins, not bottles. I mean, I have no doubt about that. But those who insist, oh no, this Bible is the unerring and nothing can destroy it or do away with it. They're going to have to see that they have mud on their faces when maybe this, whatever's causing this, changes it back to wineskins and not bottles. Then they'll say, oh, here's that video I made. And I said, I was saying it has always been bottles. And now here I'm reading it because they believe what they read that's in print. They've worshipped the scriptures, and that's not worshiping God. That's being a scripture worshiper. I've talked to so many Christians who are scripture worshipers. They would deny their own felt experiences if in what they felt it did not balance with what they think the scripture is saying. So it's really going to bring about a change in them because they'll have to see that they were wrong. Either they're going to see that they were wrong or they're going to start blaming it on something like a devil or demonic forces. And that is another contention with me because I've had an experience with a demonic force in my life, and it took several years for me to get it out, to get at peace with it. It was driving me crazy. I thought I wanted to kill myself at one time. It was just that bad. But then one day I read a good book. It was by Joel Goldstein. And he was saying in there, I think it was called Practice in the Presence. He was saying that everything, both seen and unseen, everything is God. So I reasoned that there's no part of God we should hate, even if it's an unlightened part of God doing really terrible things. And if we are every other being, we've been that enemy of ours. We've been there, and we've been the victim and the victimizer in the many lives we've lived. And yes, we should forgive our enemy because our enemy is us. It's part of our own body. And this continual warfare of trying to kill the enemy and to think that love is not strong enough to solve the problems is to not trust in the Father, Mother, God, whose principle of creating worlds was love. I don't sell love that short. But I think a lot of times, even people who are a little bit new age, like myself, they start saying, you're just a fluff ball. We need to know about all these Illuminati and all these secret governments and all kinds of things. They've got all kinds of names for them. We need to know what they're doing so we can what? They never really actually say what, but eventually I guess they'll say, let's fight them. And then who's going to identify who them are? I mean, that is not the way to go. Hate is never going to make anything. Everything hate has made is destroyed. It can't make anything that lasts, but love can. And we can find out what all love can do. And don't think, well, I've used love and it didn't work. Well, maybe you thought you used love, but maybe you didn't. Maybe you didn't give it enough time to see what gift there was to that disastrous thing that happened to you. Like when I had my experience with the ones that were tormenting me, when I learned to love and forgive them, they quit tormenting me. It was, I read about it. Well, I tell about it in a video, which I'll put in this description bar so you can see it too. But when you love, you disarm the enemy, and the enemy is no longer the enemy, but your friend. And that's what we need to learn. And a lot of it can be learned by reading Walter Russell's books, which I do, and I'm more than happy to share them, the reading of them, with anyone.